Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. So in today's video I'm going to be teaching you how to make this fairy door hanging decoration. Okay, so for this project you're going to need a 2mm hook, some scissors, a stitch marker, a sewing needle, and then for the yarn I'm using double knit acrylic yarn. This is a dark brown. You'll also need a bright yellow, a pink or purple, whatever you want for the flowers, a dark green colour, and you'll also need some black yarn. So we're going to start with the brown yarn, so I'm going to make a slip knot with the brown yarn. And I'm going to make a chain of 13. I'm then going to flip the chain over so that you can see the back bumps. So you see these little indents at the back of the chain. I'm going to make a single crochet into the second back bump from the hook. So find the second chain from the hook and then flip it over and then make a single crochet into that back bump. And then I'm going to make one single crochet into each back bump across the row. So this is what it should be looking like once you have finished the row. You're then going to turn the work and start row 2. So we're just going to make one single crochet into each stitch across, and I'm going to weave this end in as I go. So I'm just going to pick it up and loop it over the hook and then go into my first stitch and make a single crochet, and then into the second stitch and looping the tail around the hook, single crochet, and then I'm going to complete this into each stitch across. Okay, so that is row 2 finished. You're then going to repeat row 2 until you have 15 rows in total. So I'm going to come back once I've finished my 15th row. So I've just finished row 15, I'm now going to start row 16. So I'm going to turn the work, and to start I'm going to skip the very first stitch and I'm going to make a single crochet into the second stitch. I'm then going to make one double crochet into the next 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm then going to skip the next stitch and single crochet into that very last stitch. Okay. That is row 16 all finished. So for row 17 we're going to turn the work, we're going to skip the next stitch and single crochet into the next, and then we're going to make one double crochet into the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We're going to skip the next stitch and make a single crochet into that very last stitch. Okay, so that is it for the door. We're then just going to crochet a border around the door. So I'm going to, basically from where we stopped, I'm going to continue making one single crochet into each space all the way down, and then I'll meet you back once I reach this corner. So just one single crochet into kind of the side loops of each space around this side. once you've reached the very corner of the door, so just to kind of recap, we carried on single crocheting all the way down here. So once you get to the corner of the bottom of the door, you're going to single crochet into that bottom stitch, and then you're going to chain one and then single crochet into the same stitch, and this kind of creates like a corner edge. And then I'm going to make a single crochet into each stitch across, and once I get to the last stitch here, I'm going to make again single crochet, chain one, single crochet. Okay, so single crochet, chain one, and single crochet. And now I'm just going to single crochet up to this edge, and then once I reach the very first stitch of the row, I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch. So now I've reached the top of the door, I'm just going to slip stitch back into that very first stitch of the row. And then I'm just going to chain one and fasten off. So you're going to want to repeat these steps and make a second door, and then I will come back and we will work on the window. So once you have finished both of the doors, you're going to set them aside, and you're going to grab your dark yellow yarn and your black yarn and also a stitch marker. So starting with the yellow yarn, we're going to make the window. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. And then I'm going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the third chain from the hook, so that very first chain we made, slip stitch, and then you're going to kind of pull apart the chains and find that kind of center gap right there, so hopefully you can kind of see right there in the middle. We're going to make 6 single crochets into that gap in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. You're then going to pull on the tail to tighten the ring. Okay, and then you're going to add your stitch marker here in that very last single crochet, and that's going to mark the end of each round. So for round 2, we're going to make 2 single crochets into each stitch. So I'm going to find the first stitch of the round, which is right here, and make 2 single crochets. I'm also going to include this tail just to weave it in. So 2 single crochets, and then in the next stitch 2 single crochets, and then 2 single crochets into each stitch until we reach the very last stitch. Okay, so I'm just doing the 2 last single crochets, and then I'm just going to set aside my ring, and I'm going to grab the black yarn. I'm going to pick up the black yarn and I'm going to make a slip knot, and then I'm going to pick up my circle again, and what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, but with just the back loop. So I'm going to insert the hook into the next stitch, but just the back loop, like this, and then I'm going to attach the black yarn onto the hook, and then I'm going to pull through both loops with the black yarn, so just dropping that yellow yarn. So I'm just pulling through the first loop and then the second loop with the black yarn. Okay, so for the next round we're going to be making a single crochet into the back loop only of each stitch. So I'm going to also carry the yellow yarn so that it's weaved in. So I'm going to insert the hook into the next back loop of the next stitch, just weaving in those ends and then making a single crochet, and then into the next stitch and into the next. So I'm going to do this into each stitch all the way around, and then I'm going to meet you back at that very last stitch. Just going to cut the yellow yarn because we don't need that anymore. So now that we've reached the very last single crochet that we've done, I'm just going to slip stitch back into where we attached the yarn, so that first black loop that we made. We're just going to slip stitch like that, and then what we're going to do is we're basically going to slip stitch down the center of the circle to create like the borders of the window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually insert the hook into, I'm going to kind of turn the circle on its side so that we'll be crocheting across. I'm going to insert the hook into sort of the centrally into the circle. It's actually not into a stitch but just going through the circle. The hook goes out to the other side, and then I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull the yarn through like this. So you should have 2 loops on the hook and it's actually going through the back of the circle, and then I'm going to slip stitch through that. So I'm going to repeat that again all the way down. So I'm going to insert the hook down into like a space of the circle, yarn over, pull the black through, and then pull through the first loop with the second loop. Okay, and then I'm going into the center, slip stitch, and then into the next bit, making a slip stitch, and just continuing this all the way down. And then the very last one I am just going to make into one of those stitches that we made in the back loop. Okay, so that's what it should be looking like. It should be like a line going down, and you want to do that like actually going pushing the hook all the way through to the other side of the circle. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off, and then we're going to basically repeat the steps of slip stitching down, but we're going to attach the yarn over here and we're going to slip stitch across this way. So I'm just going to make a slip knot and attach it to the side, and then I'm going to just move that tail out the way because we can just weave that in after, and I'm going to repeat the exact same thing again. I'm just going to insert the hook into the yellow circle, yarn over and pull through, and then make a slip stitch. Going into the next space, yarn over, pull through, slip stitch, and I'm just going to continue this all the way across. And then I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. And then at this point we can just weave in all of these ends to the back, and then we can just set this aside for now. So we're now going to make the bushes along the bottom of the door. So you're going to want to grab your dark green yarn, and I'm just going to make a slip knot. You're going to want to insert your hook into, find the corner stitch, and then insert your hook into the kind of the front loop of it. So like this. So you see these V's, you're just going to want to grab the front loop of it, and then you're going to insert your hook into the slip knot and pull through that front loop, and then chain 1 to secure that, so that then it is on attached to the door. So into the same stitch I'm going to make a half double crochet and then a double crochet. So firstly a half double crochet and then a double crochet. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to find a little loop like a few rows above. So just find a loop and insert your hook into the loop, so about here. just kind of find a loop and insert your hook there, and then you're going to make a slip stitch through that loop. So I'm going to pull the yarn through both loops like that. That way then your bushes like lay like vertically up and they lay flat against the door. So I'm now going to repeat those steps over again. So I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to skip the next stitch. So the next stitch is here, and I'm going to make a half double crochet and a double crochet into the front loop of the next stitch. So skipping that one and then making that half double crochet into the front loop and then a double crochet, and then I'm going to find roughly on the same row a loop, insert the hook into the loop right there, and then yarn over and pull through both loops for a slip stitch. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this all the way along, so I'm going to meet you back once I reach here and then we're going to fasten off. Okay, so I've now finished making the door, so I'm going to just chain one and fasten off, and I'm going to leave a tail long enough to kind of weave in. I'm just going to weave this in like through the back of the bushes, and then I will meet you back where we will sew the window onto the door. So I'm just going to grab my sewing needle and some black yarn. I just cut a long string off and I'm going to tie a knot at one end. So I'm just going to position the window centrally, but kind of pushing it more towards the top of the door. Obviously you could push it like towards the middle, wherever you want it. So I'm going to put mine about here and I'm just going to position it, and then I'm going to go through the back of the door and I'm just going to collect like a stitch on the window and then pull through, and then I'm just going to go into the next stitch around the border and then back through the door, and then I'm repeating this all the way around, just going back and forth around the border of the window, making sure that I'm kind of holding my thumb here so that the window position stays the same. Okay, so now I've reached the top, I'm just going to sew in a few more areas just to make sure that it's secure, and then I'm going to turn the work to the back and I'm just going to make a double knot in a loop at the back. Okay, and then that is the window all sewn on. So we're now going to focus on the flowers along the bushes. So I've just grabbed my baby pink yarn, I've cut a piece off and then I tied a knot at one end, and I'm going to grab my sewing needle. And I don't really have much of a technique for this, I just basically insert the needle from the back and I start from one end of the bushes and then I just pull through all the way through, and then I just basically go into a section of the bushes above and then pull through, so you kind of create a little flower bud, and then I just basically repeat it a few more times in the exact same spot. So just going through the bushes and then back to the inserting the hook, inserting the needle to the back. It can be a bit fiddly, but okay, and then I just repeat this all the way along, just in random areas along the bushes. So I'm going to continue this all the way along. I'm just kind of doing it in random areas along the bushes, and then once I reach the end I just make sure that the hook goes to the back of the door, and then I just make a double knot at the back and then cut the yarn, and yeah, that's basically it for the flowers. So we're now going to work on the border around the door. So I'm grabbing some black yarn and I've just made a slip knot, and I'm going to insert the hook into the bottom corner of the door. So I'm just going to insert it right here, kind of where it's hidden behind the bushes, and then I'm going to pick up the slip knot and pull through. And we're not going to chain one, we're just going to pull through with the hook. And it's kind of hard to see because the yarn is quite dark, but we're basically going to be repeating what we did for the window like lines here all the way around the edge of the door. So we're going to insert the hook into like a little gap in the row above, so right here, and we're just going to yarn over, pull through. You should have 2 loops and then you're just going to pull through again, so it's like a slip stitch. You want to make sure that when you are doing this that you are inserting the hook into spaces that are like kind of vertically aligning with each other, like above each other, so that the line is straight. So I'm going into the next space, yarn over, pull through and make a slip stitch, and then again into the next space, yarn over, pull through into the next space. I'm going to continue this all the way up and then all the way round to the other side of the door, and then I'm just going to slip stitch kind of behind the bushes again and fasten off. Okay, so I'm just going to, instead of chaining one and fastening off, I'm just going to pull the yarn and then cut it, and then I'm going to weave it into the back of the door. So just grabbing the hook, pulling the yarn through, and then I'm just going to weave it in to a few places. And then this just gives like a nice little detail around like the edge of the door, it just kind of makes it a little bit more realistic. So yeah, that is the border detail all done. Okay, so you should now have your 2 panels and we're going to join them together. So I'm going to make sure that when we did the single crochet around the border of this door, that is on the outside, and same for this one. Obviously we want this on the outside as well. So you just want to place them together, and then you want to grab your brown yarn and make a slip knot. And you can insert the hook into anywhere on the door, it doesn't matter because we're just going to do a single crochet border, but I personally prefer to do it in the corner, that way it's the most hidden. So I'm going to grab the back loop of a single crochet stitch on the door with all the details on it, and the front loop of the door, the plain door panel, like this, and you want to line it up and make sure that the stitches are this like aligned, so make sure that you're grabbing the same stitch on both panels, and then you're just going to want to join the slip knot on your hook and pull through both loops and then chain one to join them. So we're now going to insert the hook into the next back loop of this one and the front loop of this one, so the 2 innermost loops on the inside you're going to insert your hook into, and you're just going to make a single crochet through both, and then repeat that into the next stitch, grabbing the back loop and then grabbing the front loop and then single crochet. Again, inserting the hook into the back loop and then the front loop and single crochet. So I'm going to continue this all the way around, and then I'm going to stop once we reach the top of the door, so I will meet you back once we have reached the top. So once you have reached the top of the door, you're then going to make a chain of 30. So once you have your chain, you're then going to make a slip stitch into that same spot that you just made the last single crochet in. So slip stitch like that, and then you're just going to continue making the single crochet into the back loop and front loop together all the way down. So I'm now just going to continue single crocheting across the bottom, and then once I reach the corner I'm going to fasten it off and then weave all the ends in. And finally I'm going to just make the little door handle, so I'm going to make a knot at the end of some black yarn that I cut off. And then I'm just going to grab a sewing needle and I'm just going to kind of sew into kind of this area here, like over and over again until I build some thickness. So I'm going under here. So I'm just kind of sewing around in the same area a couple of times. Then I'm just tucking that end in, cutting the yarn, and then I'm gonna weave that tail in as well. So there you have the little door handle. That is the fairy door all finished. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and commenting down below, as it really helps the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.